Republicans control both chambers in Frankfort. Republican President Donald Trump is expected to win the state once again. Mitch McConnell is favored to win re-election, and Congressman Andy Barr is running for his 5th term representing Central Kentucky. And we're going to stay in the 6th District now, where 2 challengers are looking to unseat Congressman Barr. There is a Libertarian candidate on the ballot. That's Frank Harris. But we're going to focus more on Barr's competitive opponent, Marine veteran and local attorney Josh Hicks, a Central Kentucky Democrat who thinks that his background makes him the ideal candidate to beat Barr. LX18's Mike Valenti with more on the race.
You won't find a whole lot of parallels between the race for the 6th District in 2018 and in 2020. This time around, no national political figures have flown in to stump for the candidate.
Andy Barr is a great congressman.
Amy is using all of her skill.
And the race hasn't garnered the same level of attention or fundraising as Barr's last contest against Amy McGrath did. But the tension has not diminished.
Andy Barr is saying he will always protect people with pre-existing conditions. But I can't let a lie as dangerous as that stand.
Why are Nancy Pelosi's allies bankrolling Josh Hicks's campaign?
Josh Hicks will be another vote for Nancy Pelosi's radical agenda.
The candidates' latest back and forth came amidst news that OxyContin maker Purdue Pharma had to pay $8 billion in penalties as part of a guilty plea to federal crimes, with Hicks calling for Barr to return campaign contributions from the drug maker.
That is a relatively small gesture that he could make to show that he's not bought and paid for, and unfortunately, he wasn't even willing to go that far.
If my opponent would like to return the hundreds of thousands of campaign contributions that he has received from liberals in Washington, D.C. and out-of-state trial lawyers, then we can talk about campaign donations.
When the candidates aren't attacking each other, they've each been trying to make the case why they're best suited to lead the 6th District through the pandemic. For Barr, he's leaning on his record. He says his constituents know he's delivered for them, whether it comes to voting for economic relief or securing PPE.
The fact that we've delivered several shipments of personal protective equipment from the Strategic National Stockpile at the outset of the outbreak. We changed a national rule on in-hospital telehealth, expanding telehealth services.
In addition, the congressman has touted his position on the House Republican task force designed to investigate the Chinese Communist Party.
On the same day that I was actually introducing legislation to hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable for this novel pandemic outbreak, my opponent was opening up a medical malpractice law firm to sue doctors and hospitals.
That's a lie.
And
Hicks' campaign has called that attack misleading, noting the lawsuits in question have nothing to do with COVID-19. Hicks does say he believes in holding China accountable if the country did indeed conceal critical information about the virus. But he says Americans need to be held accountable, too, for what he calls a lack of leadership, from the president to Congressman Barr.
He could have pulled together and issued statements contradicting some of the false narrative that came out of the White House. He could have done a number of things that said, this is a serious virus. This is going to kill Americans. This is going to destroy our economy. This is going to highlight all the failures in our healthcare system.
If Hicks were elected, he says he'd advocate for a Medicare buy-in public option, not Medicare for all. And he says people who have pre-existing conditions, including his mom, need to be protected. Barr has said the same thing about pre-existing conditions, despite repeatedly voting in the past against the Affordable Care Act during his time in Congress.
You know, it's strange to hear someone talk about their accomplishments after voting dozens of times to rip health care away from 400,000 Kentuckians before this pandemic.
In response to Hicks, Barr's campaign called this dubious, to say the least. His campaign manager telling LEX18 News Barr has, quote, voted repeatedly, including 3 times this session of Congress alone, to protect and mandate coverage for Americans with pre-existing conditions.
In their one and only debate that aired on KYT, Barr alluded to his wife, who died due to a heart condition earlier this year.
To suggest that I don't want to protect people with pre-existing conditions is downright offensive. The fact of the matter is, politicians like my opponent and Nancy Pelosi, the difference between them and me on pre-existing conditions is that they think the only way you can protect people with pre-existing conditions is to support a law that doubled and tripled premiums.
If re-elected, Barr says he would continue to focus on defeating the virus and implementing recommendations made on the China task force. Both candidates say a stimulus package must be passed into law to bring Americans economic relief. As for Hicks, he says his priorities in Congress would include promoting bills on infrastructure, expanding broadband, and lowering prescription drug prices.
I do not need a political career, but what I do need is an opportunity to serve the people of Kentucky, an opportunity to show them that government can be competent, it can be compassionate, it can be empathetic.
Current projections like the Cook Political Report give Congressman Barr the upper hand in the race. But Hicks believes his status as a political outsider carries weight, much like it did for another political newcomer at the top of the ticket in 2016. For State of the Commonwealth, Mike Valenti, LAX 18 News.